The following program is paid for by Lifespan Wealth Management, providing financial advice since 1993. At Lifespan Wealth Management, the main thing they do is provide retirement planning and advice and manage their clients' investment accounts. If you're looking for a financial advisor, contact their office at 478-922-8100 to set up your complimentary consultation. Lifespan Wealth Management has offices in Macon and Warner Robins for your convenience, and you can learn more about them by visiting their website at retirerelax.com. While you're on the site, visit the special report section, which provides great financial education information on many different topics. You can also sign up to receive their digital feeds, which are short videos providing great information relevant to retirement, investing, and matters that affect your money. They also offer seminars to the community at no cost. If you're looking for a guest speaker for your church or civic organization, give them a call to discuss the topics you would like them to cover. Again, their contact number is 478-922-8100. Now, from the Macon studio of News Talk 940 WMAC, it's time for Your Money with Sherry Goss, Randy Goss, Jonathan Eisner, and Corey Albrecht.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you to all of our listeners for checking in with us every week. It doesn't seem like at least that long ago that we were talking on here about the S&P 500 hitting 6,000. You guys remember that?
Yesterday.
It feels like 2 weeks ago, but it was probably about 8 months ago because we were coming out of a scary tariff situation, at least as it relates to the markets. A scary situation. We were on our way back up, and I remember, Randy, you specifically saying we're approaching that 6,000 figure in the S&P 500. Well, this week on, I believe it was Wednesday morning, the S&P 500 crossed over 7,000.
Yep. So when
for the first time ever.
If we have a pullback and it pulls back to 6,500, don't lose your mind over it.
Right, because we're still up compared to where we were 8-9 months ago for sure. So it crossed over 7,000. It pretty quickly went back under and then stayed slightly under for the rest of the week. But a good milestone nonetheless.
Yep.
The Federal Reserve on Wednesday afternoon, they made the decision to keep the rate unchanged for January, which was the expected result of the board meeting. And speaking of the Federal Reserve, President Trump announced on Thursday that he would announce his pick for the next chair of the Federal Reserve next week. Well, then Friday morning, he just couldn't contain himself. He nominated Kevin Warsh to be the next chair. Warsh has a good resume. He served as Fed governor under George Bush from 2006 to 2011, and he was also considered for the Fed chair in 2017 before Jerome Powell was ultimately selected for that role. Warsh will undergo a confirmation process and a full vote in the Senate.
Yeah, and it sounds like he has some big changes in mind for the Fed in general. So, but he is a data-driven person as well. So,
I expected Trump, who nominated him, to endorse him, but then it was good to read that Jamie Dimon also is a big fan of his.
I saw that too.
So that was
good.
nice to see.
I like that.
Well, it was a busy week for what they call the earnings season, which is in full swing. And there was over 100 S&P 500 companies that reported. And stocks tied to AI infrastructure, data centers, power, and select industrial things are still getting a lot of attention from investors. And as we've seen throughout this last year, if a company delivers solid results and raises guidance, buyers step in quickly. But if management disappoints, even slightly, the stock gets hit hard, i.e. Microsoft this last week.
Yes, absolutely. So next up, if Japan sneezes, does the U.S. get sick? Yields on Japanese government bonds have surged to their highest levels in nearly 30 years, a development that could have some big implications for U.S. investors. Last week, for example, the Japanese 10-year yield hit 2.36% for the first time since February of 1999, while some longer-term bond yields also soared to record levels. One main catalyst, that the Japanese Prime Minister, why can't I say that well? The Japanese Prime Minister wants to increase government spending while also cutting taxes, even as Japan is already saddled with an enormous government debt-to-GDP ratio. Additionally, the country is navigating a transition from decades of near-zero inflation to a more normal inflationary environment. While it's positive that one of the largest nations in the world is becoming more dynamic in this regard, it's creating some short-term challenges and uncertainty. This recent upward trend represents a significant shift from the past, when the Bank of Japan used artificial caps to keep government bond yields low. Back in March of 2024, however, the BOJ ended its yield control policy and began allowing the markets to set rates. The market, in turn, has told Japan it needs to offer higher yields to attract buyers for its bonds. Higher yields in Japan means Japanese institutions may find their own domestic bonds more attractive than the U.S. treasuries they typically buy. Moves by some of these institutions could impact global markets. For example, the Japanese pension industry is massive, with the government pension investment fund alone holding nearly $2 trillion in assets. That's raising concerns among investors that higher yields on Japanese bonds could push up yields on U.S. government bonds as well, keeping American debt competitive. Higher U.S. yields would, in turn, make mortgages and other loans more expensive for borrowers and could also weaken the dollar, making imports pricier for consumers. It's yet another example of the interconnectedness of global markets. Volatility in long-term Japanese bond yields can spill over into other markets and countries, influencing investment returns regardless of whether investors have direct exposure to Japan. We'll be watching this closely to see whether developments in Japan are having a significant impact on the health of the U.S. economy.
In other news, Amazon to lay off around 16,000 corporate employees. This is the latest step in the technology giant's efforts to slim down its workforce. 16,000 times 50,000 a year is about $800 million in salaries.
And that's just if the average salary is
Was
50,000.
50.
Yeah.
And at Amazon, they're pretty competitive, so it could be
A lot higher.
a lot higher than that.
And they're the white collar.
Right.
So it is going to be higher.
Especially with
lot
how
of
much they pay the lower jobs,
That's right.
just the boxers. The first round of cuts in October resulted in about 14,000 white-collar pink slips. At the time, people familiar with Amazon's plans said that the company was targeting around 30,000 job cuts, around 10% of the corporate workforce. The company's senior vice president of people experience and technology shared in an October post that the company has been working to strengthen its organization by reducing layers, increasing ownership, and removing bureaucracy. They say these layoffs are an attempt to reinvigorate the company's culture rather than realize cost savings.
Yep, the layoffs come as job growth in the U.S. enters one of its slowest patches in years. Economic concerns and trade disputes have led many corporate chiefs to say that they are postponing their hiring decisions. Advancements in AI have also led companies to try to do more with fewer workers. On Tuesday, Amazon said it was shutting down its Fresh and Go grocery stores after deciding to focus its efforts on expanding Whole Foods Market stores and same-day deliveries of fresh food from warehouses. As a result, the company is laying off employees who helped run the Fresh and Go business, according to an internal memo viewed by the Wall Street Journal.
So, Amazon went on a hiring spree during the pandemic when a housebound population took more of its shopping online. Amazon hired around 100,000 workers in a short period in response to the increased demand. So next up, proposed California billionaire tax, a valuation nightmare. Initiative number 25-0024, a.k.a. the 2026 Billionaire Tax Act, if it receives the required voter signatures, which seems likely, and is approved by voters in the next election, the act will impose a one-time wealth tax on all billionaire residents in California of a whopping 5% of all assets over $1 billion.
Yeah, this is a nightmare. We live in an age of sharp political polarization, and billionaires aren't very popular. And my suspicion, therefore, is that the ballot measure will pass, although the initial polls don't look great for its proponents. And actually, Governor Newsom doesn't even like this idea.
That's kind of surprising.
It is. What are the valuation implications of the act? Well, the upshot is that the act's valuations of taxpayer wealth in California is rendered utterly unworkable by contradictory and unpredictable valuation rules. And here are some preliminary questions that are worth asking. Why won't the billionaires just leave California? And they're already doing that. Is this even legal for the California or the U.S. Constitution? And how would the act be implemented?
With respect to the first question, evidence already suggests yes, they will, and have. Some very significant taxpayers, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, among them, have left the state already. One unscientific survey indicates that taxpayers with collectively around $1 trillion worth of assets have already left California. Note that while the valuation date for the net worth of each taxpayer is December 31st, 2026, the tax obligation date is January 1st, 2026. So if you're still a California resident as of today, you will owe the tax if the act is passed. But that doesn't mean that people won't be moving out of the state during 2026. Some might be preparing to fight the tax. Others might be afraid that if it passes, there won't be a one-time tax that will happen again.
Yep. The Act imposes an excise tax on excessive wealth accumulation of 5% of the taxpayer's net worth, which is about $1 billion to add to the reserve fund that will fund health care in California for 5 years. So, does this mean Californians no longer need health care after 5 years? That's a good question. Is there a chance this won't really be a one-time thing? We all have our guesses, and I bet everyone around this table today is very skeptical of that. Let's assume that the ballot measure passes and survives the legal challenges. Then in October of 2027, a few hundred California taxpayers will file their tax returns with forms, appraisals, and other analysis that support the necessary rules to value their fortunes and estimated by the proponents of the ballot measure. Other California taxpayers may be affected by the act because if they don't want to account for their wealth and pay the taxes, they need to check the box saying, "I'm not a billionaire." And if these returns could also be audited, and the act specifically mandates that the California Franchise Board does just that. Whenever it reasonably believes someone has checked the box inappropriately, then they can change it. And writing checks for 5% of their entire net worth exceeding $1 billion. What then? A person may need to sell at least some assets to raise the $50 million to cover the taxes on $1 trillion in their estate valuation.
The fair market value, or FMV, of the assets will be measured as of December 31, as Corey mentioned a minute ago. FMV is given the same willing buyer, willing seller definition commonly used in tax valuations, but with some major exceptions. No consideration of what a forced sale would yield, or reliance on what the asset would sell for outside of its usual market. No valuation discounts either, specifically not for partial interests, and no consideration of legal features, such as shareholder right plans, if such features reduce the value. There are many other valuation rules, and none of them seem friendly to the taxpayer. How can a certified appraisal for a client who has such limited information that they don't even know the entity's book value or income be accurately valued? Who will write the appraisals? Nonetheless, this is a requirement that must be submitted, regardless of how the interests are eventually evaluated.
Yeah, and then there are profit interest. 2 and 20 is a sweet deal, and what I'm referring to here is the fee structure that is used in the hedge fund, private equity, and venture capital industries. The 2 refers to the 2% annual management fee charged on the total assets under management, and the 20% is the performance fee on any profits earned. Many California billionaires are likely private equity / venture capital or hedge fund guys. For all such interest, the taxpayer will be presumed to own no less than the share of the profits due, even if for funds with no profits yet. Even for unvested carry, which refers to stock options or equity grants that have not been fully earned. For example, a founder and general partner at a venture capital firm just raised $15 billion, and the carried interest is 25%. Collectively, the firm and all of its general partners would owe a wealth tax of $3.75 billion just for this new fund that hasn't even earned 1 cent yet. And finally, if the valuation rules prescribed in the above paragraphs misvalue an interest substantially, and the taxpayer or the board can demonstrate this with clear and convincing evidence, either party can submit a certified appraisal.
All right, is this fun yet? So to recap, some of the worst consequences of the above valuation rules might be mitigated by submitting appraisals. And some taxpayers will also be required to submit appraisals for interests where they lack information rights. The really worrying stuff is in Chapter 4, Certified Appraisals. First, Section 50305A requires any appraiser preparing a certified appraisal for the purposes of the Act to send a copy to the board along with information sufficient to identify the taxpayer. And the board shall adopt regulations or guidance detailing the requirements for certified appraisals. Those regs shall be passed on the qualified appraisal rules and the Treasury regulations for charitable donations. Here's the fun part. The board may impose a penalty on the appraiser for any undervaluation up to 2% of any substantial undervaluation or 4% of any gross undervaluation. Here's an example. If an appraiser values an interest at $1 billion and the board believes a better number is $2 billion, the appraiser could owe up to $40 million extra dollars.
That's just crazy.
Who would want that job?
Right.
But none of this will likely matter. For interests with insufficient information, even to fill out a simple spreadsheet with book value and profits on each ownership stake, no good appraiser will take on the assignment. And unless the appraiser penalties are watered down substantially, no appraisers will touch the 2026 billionaire tax appraisals. And the really scary thing is that once all the billionaires leave California, the next group of people to be taxed will be the millionaires. This trend is also playing out in New York City right now. Socialist ideals are punitive to those who are builders and creators, those who make jobs for others. This is spreading, and it is amazing to me that one thing these socialists never seem to consider is budgeting better. I'll rephrase that. All politicians need to stop pandering and learn to operate the government like a business, make the budget work without burdening the workers.
Agreed.
Amen.
Similar situation, Virginia eyes doubling income taxes on millionaires, taxing investment gains. Newly empowered Virginia state Democrats are advancing proposals that would sharply raise taxes on millionaires and investment income, breaking with decades of flat rate tax policies. The effort mirrors a broader push across Democrat-controlled states to tap high earners to fund expanded spending and close budget gaps. One of the central proposals is the bill to create a new 10% income tax bracket on all earnings above $1 million. Virginia currently taxes all income above roughly $17,000 at a flat 5.75%. If enacted, the change would more than double the marginal rate for the state's highest earners. Lawmakers backing the bill say the additional revenue would be split among public schools, child care subsidies, and affordable housing programs. A Democratic representative who was interviewed said that by having the millionaires pay their fair share, it will actually help Virginians be able to come out of the affordability crisis and kind of buffer them a little bit from what's going on at the federal level. A second proposal would layer on a state-level net investment income tax. Modeled after the federal net investment income tax, the levy would apply to dividends, interest, capital gains, and rental income once a taxpayer's modified adjusted gross income exceeds $500,000. Combined with the existing taxes, the measure could push Virginia's effective top rate on investment income close to 9.6%, significantly raising the burden on affluent households and substantial passive income.
Supporters argue that the measures promote fairness and align tax treatment of investment income with wages. But critics see different risks. They warn that higher taxes could make Virginia less competitive with neighboring states, discourage business investment, and accelerate tax flight among high-income residents who have flexibility over where they can live and work.
You think? Both bills remain under legislative review and would need approval from both chambers before reaching Governor Spanberger, who has yet to comment on the proposal. Virginia is not acting alone. Several Democratic-led states have already moved to enact higher taxes on the wealthy. Massachusetts implemented a 4% surtax on income above $1 million in 2023, and Minnesota raised its top marginal rate on investment income for millionaires. Here's the biggest problem with this bill. How do you tax capital gains and not get a discount for capital losses? I'm talking about investment accounts. So if you are in this category, you'd probably call your financial advisor and tell them that you need losses to offset the taxes that you would pay on everything else. And how would this impact the markets? The entire concept has been thrown about before, and it does not work.
Yeah, and Rhode Island and Washington state lawmakers are advancing new millionaire tax proposals to shore up strained budgets as well. Meanwhile, the Democratic-led states of New York, New Jersey, and California already maintain some of the highest top income tax rates in the country.
Yep. New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani has repeatedly said he wants to raise taxes on high-income residents to help fund his affordability agenda, including free childcare and public transit. His proposal includes a roughly 2% surcharge on income for residents earning over $1 million, a plan he says is necessary to stabilize city finances and ask the wealthiest to pay their fair share. New York Governor Kathy Hochul recently submitted a budget to the state legislature without any tax increases in it.
And California remains the furthest out on this policy spectrum. Lawmakers and activists are debating a proposed wealth on the billionaires that could apply to net worth rather than income. Critics say that the initiative is poorly drafted and could force founders of major companies to sell the controlling stakes that they have to pay the tax. That, they argue, could rattle the stock prices and harm retirement portfolios far beyond Silicon Valley executives.
Uhichi Kalu, founder at Greenlight Financial Planning in Los Angeles, said a lot of her clients are social justice minded and don't mind higher taxes if policy initiatives align with their morals and values. She said, many of my clients are okay with paying higher taxes if they can clearly see that the taxes are being used to truly enrich the nation and solve issues like homelessness, healthcare, and education. But policy analysts say the concerns are not theoretical. Christina Inachi, an economist at the Tax Foundation, said history offers repeated warnings. Many developed countries have repealed their wealth taxes because they raise little revenue, create high administrative costs, and induce an outflow of wealthy individuals and their money, like we're seeing in California right now. She added that policymakers increasingly have concluded that heavy taxes on capital damage economic growth, and I can see why.
Yep. And Chris Edwards, the director of tax policy studies at the Cato Institute, raised similar concerns. He argued that the calls to tax the wealth are often framed around the fairness, but overlook economic consequences. Wealth taxes, he said, punish savings and capital formation, discourage entrepreneurship, and reduce long-term productivity. Meanwhile, low-tax states such as Florida, Texas, Tennessee, and Nevada continue to market themselves aggressively to high earners and retirees seeking stability.
I would move now.
Yep.
So where would you move to? If I was in this boat of people, I would personally move back to Florida. If you can handle the heat and the rush of Florida, it's a wonderful place to live, and it wouldn't hurt for me to get stuck back with my friends and family. Also, Governor DeSantis is pushing to get rid of property tax, which would add an extra selling point to the state. You would actually own your property in Florida, not just rent it from the government. I think that this, on top of other things that the state is pushing for, could make a lot of people more interested in moving to Florida, especially with the other states pushing them away.
Well, California, I read an article recently where the realtors in California are saying that they have a boom going on right now in the ultra high net worth properties, and they're all coming from California.
Wow.
So
if you've heard the saying, if it's too good to be true, and here's an example, Georgia Advisor's Ponzi scheme was likely the largest in state's history.
This is a crazy story.
It's insane.
it's sad.
Todd Burkhalter of Drive Planning pleaded guilty to defrauding over 2,000 investors of $380 million while using the funds for luxury purchases. A Georgia-based financial advisor pleaded guilty to this $380 million fraud that victimized thousands of investors in what officials said was potentially the worst Ponzi scheme in state history.
Burkhalter pleaded guilty to wire fraud last week. According to the Justice Department, Burkhalter used the illicit earnings to purchase a yacht, a condo, vehicles, and other things. Todd Burkhalter perpetrated what is likely the largest Ponzi scheme in Georgia history, according to the U.S. Attorney Hertzberg. As crazy as it may seem, the advisor shamelessly continued to scam his victims even while under federal investigation.
Isn't that just crazy?
Right under
It's like a movie.
Yeah, it is.
According to the charges, between September 2020 and June 2024, Drive Planning marketed investment opportunities like the Real Estate Acceleration Loan, REAL, and the Cash Out Real Estate Fund, or CORE program.
Burkhalter falsely claimed that that REAL was a bridge loan fund that offered short-term loans to real estate developers who need immediate cash flow. In reality, Burkhalter continuously operated REAL as a Ponzi scheme. The funds were never used for the purposes that he claimed. Burkhalter promised investors 10% guaranteed returns every 3 months.
That should be a red flag.
Yep, and falsely claimed investors' funds were collateralized by real estate. He would even go as far as to prepare collateral sheets identifying properties, some of which didn't even exist, with fictitious valuations acting as collateral. The firm also lied about its relationship with a prominent Atlanta-based real estate developer, claiming that investors' funds were secured by property in that developer's portfolio. The developer eventually sued Drive Planning and Burkhalter for false claims.
Yeah, and with the CORE fund, the CORE fund, Drive Planning claimed to provide 100% passive income from tax liens with guaranteed returns of 10% every 6 months or a 22% annual return for 3 years. However, Burkhalter and Drive Planning didn't disclose that they stopped investing funds in the CORE after December of 2022, instead pocketing about $4.1 million from investors. From the start of the scheme, Burkhalter used investor funds for private expenses, including $80,000 to pay his ex-wife's attorneys and buy recreational vehicles. Some of the new funds were used to pay existing investors with new investors' funds, like in a Ponzi scheme fashion. He also spent about $2 million on a yacht named Stillwater and $2.1 million on a luxury condo in Cabo San Lucas, and $800,000 on luxury vehicles, including a 2020 Prevost Marathon motor coach and 2024 Land Rovers, millions on luxury travel, including chartering private jets, and $320,000 on clothing, jewelry, and beauty treatments. And the beauty treatments made me curious, so I Googled them. I'm going to tell you, the beauty treatments didn't work, okay? He could be the brother of the dad of Pawn Stars. Now, I'm not talking about the old man, not the granddad, but the dad. So.
And then
man.
my side note is we've been to Cabo San Lucas, and I wouldn't buy any property there. Seriously, $2 million, and you can't even swim in the ocean. Remember that?
Yeah,
you could swim. You had to swim in a pool.
Yeah, the riptide's there, but you can drink the water there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go then. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Anyway,
The Securities and Exchange Commission began investigating Burkhalter and Drive Planning in March 2024. According to the commission's complaint, Burkhalter also used investor funds to buy a ranch in Mineral Bluff, Georgia, and to build a barn doubling as an event space on the property. Additionally, an Indianapolis ABC affiliate reported last summer on a class action lawsuit filed by Drive Planning clients in the state alleging that a managing director from the firm encouraged countless people to invest, resulting in losses of vast sums of money.
I don't understand how he thought he could get away with this, and I hope his clients get their money back after they sell all of this stuff.
They'll probably get pennies on the dollar. Just
Right.
Right.
What really blows my mind is how he was able to convince his clients that he was making these returns. He must have done all the client communication by mail, printing out fake statements, which is what that other guy did. The last big Ponzi scheme.
Bernie Madoff.
Yeah, that's what Bernie Madoff was doing. So you should always be able to log into your investment accounts and see what you're invested in and what your returns are. I can't believe he got away with this in this day and age.
I agree with you.
There was a case here locally in Warner Robins recently of an insurance agent who had frauded, if that's a word, frauded. A lot of people out of their money.
Defrauded.
Defrauded and took their money and ran and made promises to this person, but he took this person's money to pay this person, and then,
Oh my gosh.
years into the thing, and then he gets his insurance license taken away, revoked. So you got to be careful. And I had somebody just this week, I think, ask me. They were like, "Hey, we saw something out here that guarantees 10%." I said, "Please, if you ever see anything
Right.
like that, run it by me first.
Yes.
Run it by me because
also you can check out any advisor on brokercheck.com, and you can see any complaints that may have been lodged against them, settlements against them or whatever. So brokercheck.com is a great starting point before you go visit an advisor.
agreed."
Okay.
You've been listening to Your Money, brought to you by Lifespan Wealth Management, proudly serving Middle Georgia for over 30 years. Our mission? Helping folks just like you plan for a secure and stress-free retirement. Need a trusted financial advisor? Call us today at 478-922-8100 and schedule your complimentary consultation at our Macon or Warner Robins office. Want to learn more? Visit us anytime at retirerelax.com. Because when you plan smart, you can retire and relax. And here's something extra. We offer free educational seminars for the community. If your group needs a guest speaker, give us a call and let's make it happen. That's 478-922-8100. Now, let's get back to the show.
All right, let's talk about longevity. Increased longevity is a lot more than demographic milestone. It's a major economic force reshaping how clients live, work, and invest, and how we as advisors will serve them. With roughly half of today's 5-year-olds in the U.S. expected to live beyond 100, advisors must prepare clients and perhaps themselves for careers and a retirement that unfolds multiple chapters rather than just in a single 2-phase life of work followed by leisure.
Advisors need to consider not just retirement savings, but also healthcare costs, lifestyle changes, and intergenerational wealth transfers. This holistic shift of financial planning includes the entire life cycle of a client.
I think that the insurance industry as well as the healthcare industry is going to surge in funding and spending in the coming century. Because it's not saying that the new 80-year-olds are going to look and act like 70. They're going to be the same 80-year-olds with the same needs, needing the same care, but they're simply going to need that care for longer. I think it's an important distinction between living longer and aging slower. It's not saying that people are going to be aging slower. They're just going to be they're going to be needing care for longer. And unless there's going to be drugs or other medicine that extends or stops you from aging up to that 80 point where you start needing a lot of care, getting there slower, I think it's just going to extend how much you're going to actually need.
Yeah, this isn't a the 5-year-olds expected to live to 100.
Makes you feel old, doesn't it?
It makes you feel old, but it's kind of a little bit of, I've never heard that stat before. So that was a little bit surprising, but all of this isn't a sudden or drastic change. We've seen this coming for years now where life expectancies are longer. And it seems like we are far enough ahead of it to make proper and necessary adjustments for what is now expected for the rising generations.
Yeah, and one of the biggest risks besides healthcare is longevity risk, which is the risk of outliving one's retirement savings due to the rising life expectations and inflation. This requires a proactive adjustment to financial strategies by the client and by the advisory firm. This is not a one-sided problem, though. Failing to properly save for retirement starts with the proper mindset of the client, and the earlier the better.
I just met with potential clients this week and talked about this. We actively manage our client fee accounts to avoid large losses, but I still recommend only taking 4% distributions annually. They will easily be able to live on this, and the money will continue to grow for their future. One of their concerns is the possibility of needing long-term care down the road, so we're looking at possible quotes for buying that sort of protection. If you're concerned about this potential future cost, come see us or at least call and ask for a quote. There are products out there that combine long-term care with other products, and Jonathan is great at working through these options, so give him a call. Alrighty, the 10-year rule for inherited IRAs and how that is a disaster for the next generation. I continue to see people who are inheriting money from a non-spouse and they have never heard of the 10-year rule for inherited IRAs and Roth accounts. The Roth is not a big deal as the money is not taxable, but you really need to make a plan if you are inheriting a large sum of money that is in a non-spouse IRA. In the case I saw this week, the person inheriting the money is not the spouse and will work another 5 to 7 years. So I suggested taking the minimum distribution required while he was still working and then take the remainder in the following years when his income and tax bracket would be much lower. Nobody he is dealing with regarding the estate had explained this to him, not anybody. I know if you listen to this show a lot, we've talked about it, but there are still a lot of people who have never heard of the 10-year rule.
Yep, and because we have saved, this is just an example, we have saved a lot of money over our lifetimes, and it's all in IRA type accounts like Simples and SEPs and IRAs and Roths. All of our money will have to be spent down 10 years by our beneficiaries. So we have created a trust that all the money is going to go into, and it will pay out 4% per year to the beneficiaries. And this is just a thought in case you're in that situation and you don't want your money just to be used up within 10 years, but you kind of want to create a legacy that can go on for generations.
And the worst thing I've seen in my business is clients who pass away and their young children inherit the money, and they're like, well, I have to take it out in 10 years, so I'll just spend it. And they just blow it. And it's like, no, we could roll that into another investment account and invest it for their future. Well, it's like, I have to take it out, so I'll just go buy a house. And I can't stop them. So anyways, we try hard to not have people make the wrong moves, but I can't always get that to happen. Anyways, next up, why it pays to check your tax withholding this year. Tax refunds are expected to be $1,000 higher on average this year, with some taxpayers seeing increases of $10,000 or more. It's time to grab your tax refund, and while you're at it, think about grabbing a piece of next year's too. For millions of Americans expecting bigger refunds in the coming months because of the new tax law, it's more important than ever to consider adjusting the taxes withheld from your paycheck or other income. Doing so can mean a bigger paycheck now instead of waiting for another supersized refund in 2027. Some taxpayers, especially upper-middle income taxpayers with high state and local taxes, could see these refunds up to $10,000 or more. The average refund last year came in at about but a little over $3,000. That means people are paying in more in taxes via withholding than needed and could instead keep a bigger portion of their paychecks throughout the year. If your refund this year is $1,000 higher, for instance, you could instead get $45 more twice a month in your paycheck starting in February. If your refund is $10,000 or higher, you could get $450 more per paycheck.
Yeah, in a perfect world, what you pay to the government through withheld taxes and estimated payments throughout the year would match your tax liability, so that the bottom line on your tax return is zero. The problem is that tax withholding isn't an exact science, as I'm sure everybody knows, and it doesn't account for all the latest tax laws changing or fluctuating factors, such as freelance income, investment income, and charitable donations. Some of last summer's new tax law provisions apply retroactively to tax year 2025, which are the returns people are filing starting this upcoming Monday. But with the withholding tables that dictate how much money employers withhold from employees' paychecks weren't updated for 2025 based on the new law. And people largely don't update their withholding elections with their employer unless they get a new job, hence the bigger expected refunds this season. For the 2026 tax year, withholding tables have been changed, but it's up to you to file a new W-4 tax withholding form to get the benefit of the new deductions in your paycheck. Those include new deductions for taxpayers 65 and older and for tips and overtime income. The cap on the state and local tax deduction, or SALT, increased from $10,000 to $40,000.
If any of these changes apply to you, you might benefit from adjusting your withholding, so it's a better match with your tax liability. If your employer doesn't withhold enough, you might owe taxes on your tax return and an underpayment penalty. As of January 1st, the IRS is charging 7% interest on estimated tax underpayments. Individual taxpayers can generally insulate themselves from such penalties by paying in, through withholding or estimated taxes, at least 90% of their current tax year bill or 100% of their previous tax year's bill. The 100% figure raises to 110% for filers with adjusted gross income of more than $150,000 or $75,000 for married taxpayers filing separately.
Yep, and to adjust how much your paycheck is withheld in taxes, you'll need to fill out a new W-4 with your employer. The IRS has updated the withholding form and deductions worksheet for 2026 to include the new tax brackets for tip income, overtime compensation, car loan interest, the deductions for seniors, and higher state and local tax or SALT cap. The worksheet also includes changes that take effect in 2026 that apply to charitable donations, one of the big reasons people could get bigger refunds. After adding up how much in deductions you now qualify for on the worksheet, you enter the new total on the W-4. You might make other changes too. Say if you got married, if you have income from a second job, or you had a child, is a bit like filling out a tax return. Once you hand in the new W-4, your employer's payroll system will adjust your withholdings behind the scenes. Your paycheck will then reflect the new withholding amount. Many employers have self-service portals that allow you to do this online. Otherwise, you'll have to fill out the W-4 and hand it back in to the HR department. To change withholding on the Social Security benefits, though, you'll need to complete a form W-4V, as in Victor, with the Social Security Administration. You can make this change in January, and when you do your tax return in the middle of the year or even in the last quarter of the year, you might still get a refund next year, but it shouldn't be as big.
What free tax filing options are still available? Despite the IRS axing Direct File, the Free File program remains in place. Free File is a program offered through a public-private partnership between the IRS and Free File Incorporated. It helps eligible taxpayers file federal tax returns for free using private tax software companies that partner with the IRS. To qualify, your household adjusted gross income must be under $84,000. State tax filing may cost extra depending on the provider. Free File debuted in 2003 with the goal of helping the IRS meet the 80% e-file target established by the Restructuring and Reform Act of 1998. You'd assume taxpayers would flock to the e-file for free. The e-file market exploded, but not necessarily for free services, prompting allegations that some providers were directing taxpayers to paid services. In 2019, the last year the Free File agreement was signed, up to 100 million taxpayers, or 70% of all filers, were eligible to use Free File. The actual use was about 3%.
ProPublica wrote a series of articles focusing on the lengths to which tax software companies went, such as extensive lobbying and hiding free options to get taxpayers to pay for services. The allegations created quite a stir and resulted in litigation. Today, tax preparation software companies are prohibited from hiding free filing services from Google or other search result pages. Additionally, if you can't file for free after visiting a company's Free File website, you must be able to return to the Free File website to find another offer, and each IRS Free File company must provide information when you don't qualify. Following those changes, two traditional Free File participants, Intuit and H&R Block, opted out of the program.
Yeah, Free File fillable forms are available to all taxpayers regardless of income or age. However, to use free fillable forms, you must create an account on your IRS website, Free File site. This includes verifying with both your email and your mobile phone number, and your phone number must be able to receive text messages. Free fillable forms, excuse me. I'm surprised I got that right.
It's kind of a mouthful, isn't it? It's like a tongue twister. Free file fillable forms
should be available now. All right. Let's talk about some Bitcoin. Bitcoin will take the place of gold. Fed suddenly braced for a $34 trillion BlackRock price surprise. Bitcoin has limped into 2026 flailing in the wake of gold price boom that has catapulted it to the eye-watering $34 trillion market capitalization, triggering predictions of even more gains to come. The Bitcoin price, which plummeted under $100,000 per Bitcoin in November, has struggled to regain its value. Some believe Bitcoin will take the place of gold to a large extent, though, because it's so much more functional than passing a bar of gold around.
BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, led a Wall Street Bitcoin and crypto adoption charge in 2023, with the company spearheading a campaign to bring a fully fledged Bitcoin exchange-traded fund, or ETF, to the market. BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF has rocketed to become one of the fastest-growing ETFs of all time following its early 2024 launch, holding almost 800,000 Bitcoins worth $70 billion on behalf of investors. In September last year, BlackRock thought the Bitcoin price would go up, advising investors to hold Bitcoin alongside gold to give them a little bit of ballast in the portfolio against potential for currency depreciation. Fears of further currency depreciation have fueled the so-called debasement trade in recent months, propelling the gold price to over $5,000 per ounce. I believe this week it hit 54 and some change, if I'm not mistaken. Crazy. While investors have also piled into silver, which is around 115 or 120 per ounce.
I had somebody ask me this week how to get rid of their silver jewelry they don't want anymore. And I got rid of mine, 6 months ago, Randy? I went and sold it.
Yeah, some more. Yeah, we got rid of a bunch about 15 years ago.
I should have hung on to it.
Right. You got any gold? Got any gold jewelry?
Don't have anything I want to get rid of.
Oh.
Anyways, Microsoft starts sharing your location with your employer. This story applies to our daughter. You have 6 weeks left to secretly work from home. Trusting your usual virtual background on Teams to mask an untidy living room or kitchen table from colleagues has been working, but Microsoft now has some very bad news. Microsoft confirms that its Microsoft 365 roadmap is about to add a crafty new feature. When users connect to their organization's Wi-Fi, Teams will automatically set their work location to reflect the building they are working in. Conversely, if you're not connected to work Wi-Fi, then it shows it instead, and you will be found out. It seems Microsoft may have noted the controversy this update has raised. Originally slated for January, the update was then pushed to March. The update applies to Teams for Windows Desktop and Teams for Mac Desktop. The UC specialist also report that Microsoft emphasizes user controls and guardrails. Specifically, the feature is opt-in, will be off by default, and Teams will not update the location after working hours and will clear it at the end of their working hours.
Yeah, like Sherry said, this feature will be off by default, but Microsoft says tenants that the admins will decide whether to enable it and the end users to opt in. Why is this so contentious, though? The answer is fairly simple and goes to a much broader pushback against work platforms tracking locations and behavior. What is clear, though, is that the tool can be used to police adherence to policies around when people work outside the office, and plenty of enterprises will do exactly that. Enterprises will have to define purpose, access, and acceptable uses, preferably before the first pilot is used. Otherwise, the feature built to reduce friction could end up creating it just in a different place.
So I find this really interesting because all of my clients that are working from home, one of them is actually working in a travel trailer, and they go out to a different park every month. And she gets on her laptop or he gets on his, and they do all their work from their travel trailer from all over the United States because their employer doesn't care where they are.
That's right. As long as the employer doesn't care, they're not going. This is not going to affect them at all.
Right.
But
even our daughter was working for the government. She was working from home. That's probably the ones that they probably would really like to track better.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I would guess.
All right, big changes coming to Social Security. Imagine that. The Social Security Administration will overhaul its workflow to accommodate a slimmed-down workforce and handle its cases on a nationwide basis, as opposed to addressing beneficiaries' cases locally. That could lead to further service disruptions at an agency that handles benefits for about 75 million Americans. The change, which will come in about 2 months, could lead to delays in service as employees are forced to learn the nuances of different state laws that could impact benefits. Rather than working as regional silos, each of the 1,200 local field offices will soon manage benefits nationally. The plan change comes after much upheaval at the agency. In the past year, the Social Security Administration has cut about 12% of its workforce, or about 7,000 jobs, closed regional offices, replaced top leadership, and changed its phone customer service system. It also has encouraged beneficiaries to use online services, even as some older adults and people with disabilities have access issues.
Yep, the Social Security Administration will launch a a national appointment scheduling calendar, and a national workload management interface for all field operations, digital services, and processing centers on March 7th. The Social Security Administration's Chief of Field Operations told Social Security employees in November, in a November 25th memo, that changes will be made to centralize the workload. They said that for decades, their 1,250 field offices have operated as independent mini Social Security administrations. That model no longer serves the public or our people. It prevents true specialization, limits the impact of technology, and produces backlogs we should not sustain. In addition to concerns about the adequate staffing, analysts cited potential issues with nationwide workforce lacking local knowledge on different state programs and policies. For example, Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, which provides benefits to those with limited incomes who are 65 or older, blind or disabled, or has eligibility and payments that can vary by states.
Moving to a national caseload is going to require a lot of training and employee education. It's a big departure from how Social Security has done business, so the most important thing is going to be getting the implementation right. That means things like giving staff the resources they need to understand the nuances of 50 states' laws for the many programs and policies that interact with Social Security and SSI.
Yeah, not to mention figuring out an efficient way to share paper documents nationwide and adequately training staff on the new system. And I have to ask, why are they still using paper documents? You got to be kidding me here.
No, I got all paper documents when I applied for Medicare through Social Security.
Yeah, but why?
I don't know why. I don't know why I couldn't get an email. It doesn't make any sense to me. Anyways, getting this right will be particularly tricky for Social Security. It's not clear yet what SSA's implementation plan is or if it's sufficient. If not, the rollout could cause significant challenges for applicants and lots of frustrations for everyone involved. There are still problems with last year's hasty switch to nationalizing phone service that have yet to be resolved.
The Social Security Administration recently highlighted service changes made in the past year, reporting that 65% more calls were answered in the fiscal 2025 than in the prior year, with the average speed of answer for the 800 number being in the single digits of hold time. A total of 90% of the calls are now resolved by self-service options or callbacks. Critics have cautioned that callback wait times can be over an hour, though.
I have a client this in the last 6 months that waited on the phone for 3 hours to get to a person.
Nightmare.
3 hours.
Yeah.
On their cell phone. Anyways.
The Social Security Administration will need more staffing to handle the current workflow, no matter how the work is organized. Without adequate staffing, SSA can't serve the public adequately. Right now, SSA doesn't have enough frontline staff to meet the demand for timely service. Simply shifting workloads around is not going to change that.
You know, I just wish them the best, though, because the public needs to be served in a much more efficient way than what they're doing right now. There is no need for people to wait on hold for 3 hours.
You better have your phone charger with you.
Yep.
Right.
All right. Have you heard of the No Buy 2026? This challenge could help you get your budget on track this year. Maybe this is the year of cutting back. Sometimes getting your budget on track starts with a detox to wipe the slate clean and build new habits. Many consumers have taken a no-spend challenge to put themselves to the test and see if they can go a day, a week, a month without spending money. Others have taken it a step further and adopted a no-buy year to cut out unnecessary spending and focus on what matters. Here's what you need to know about No Buy 2026 and how to incorporate it into your life.
Yep. Some people are taking a step further and adopting the trend for the entirety of 2026. For example, a Reddit group dedicated to the No Buy Challenge boasts more than 70,000 members who share their personal experiences and tips. Many of those who take on the challenge start by creating a list of rules for themselves that align with their lifestyles. This could include hard rules such as no new clothing whatsoever or no new technology, as well as rules that limit the frequency of certain purchases, such as yes to take out once per month or yes to the one nail appointment every 2 weeks.
Others have posted online about having a low buy year, which means they're limiting the amount of purchases they're making rather than cutting out non-essential spending altogether. The ultimate goal, spend less and save more in order to reach larger financial goals, from paying off debt to buying a home. You may wonder why creating a simple budget isn't enough. While it certainly can be for many, some people need the extra motivation that comes from a challenge. Challenges work because they give you a structure with a finish line, and you're not saying no forever, just not now.
The challenge also helps you break long-standing habits like reaching for your phone to shop when you're bored, because you have the time to ask yourself whether you truly need or want an item.
Yep. And plus, there's a little psychology at play. Our brains love a good goal, especially when there's a sense of community and accountability behind that goal.
Yeah, there's also the added bonus of having built-in accountability partners, be it through close friends, family, or the global online communities that are working towards the same goal and experiencing similar pain points and victories. And if your budget has been off track and you're struggling to get your spending under control, embarking on a no-buy challenge can be a good way to reset and remind yourself of what's really important.
So if you're thinking of getting on board and joining in on a no-buy 2026, there are a few steps you can take to set yourself up for success. First, create your no-buy rules. The spending parameters you set should be unique to your situation. After all, no one knows your spending habits and pitfalls better than you. What are your non-negotiables? What can you afford to cut out? Be honest with yourself about what is absolutely needed versus what simply is nice to have. It's also important to be flexible. For example, cutting out all non-essential purchases completely may be demotivating for a while, whereas limiting your fun purchases to once a month will make you, once a week or once a month, will make you feel less deprived and motivated to stick to your plan. My personal pet peeve, stop buying processed prepackaged food. You are wasting money and don't even know what you're eating.
Yep. Well, this number 2 is you too.
Still, set a savings goal. Having an end goal in mind can make it easier to stick to the challenge. Imagine what you hope to accomplish. Perhaps your goal is to pay off your car loan, save for a down payment for a home, or set aside enough money to start a business. Knowing your why can help you avoid veering off track when things get difficult.
Yep. Find free joy. Just because you're avoiding spending money doesn't mean you have to deprive yourself of the things that bring you joy. Replace shopping habits with low-cost or no-cost fun. Picnics, hikes, library runs, or finally watching that streaming series that you have ignored. My family and I went on a hike when we went to the mountains in November. It is so fun. It's so fun to go and walk for a couple hours up a mountain and then back down. And if you're physically able to do it, there's a lot of joy in things like that.
Yeah, and you know what? You should do stuff like that while you can.
Right.
Because you never know how the turns, in it, that your health may take.
Completely. Keep track of your progress. Watching your savings increase over time can be a constant reminder that your no-buy challenge isn't limiting you. It's helping you get closer to reaching your financial goals. Consider using a budgeting app or spreadsheet to track your progress over time. And whenever you're feeling deflated, you can remind yourself of how far you've come. Or as Sherry and Randy like to say, don't use an app, write it down.
Yep.
Write it down with a pen and
Absolutely.
pad.
All right. You also need to forgive the slip-ups. You're aiming for progress, not perfection. If you have a moment of weakness and you end up splurging, use it as an opportunity to learn, then get back on track. And if you cave and buy a latte or a concert ticket, don't quit the challenge, just reset and keep going.
Would you like to have a financially successful year? First, carefully think about every financial decision. There's a concept called opportunity cost, which is the potential benefit, profit, or value an individual investor or business misses out on when choosing one alternative or another. A decision to buy an expensive car is a decision not to use that money to buy other goods or services, or to save more, or to add money to your child's college savings account.
Yep. And every financial decision matters. When Sherry and I got married, we made a pact that we wouldn't purchase over a certain dollar amount without talking about it and agreeing jointly to make that expenditure. That really helped us stay on the same page. And you need to remember to invest in yourself. Are you not happy? Are you happy with your current job? Or are you not happy with it? And would you like to have the ability to do something different? Then this is the time where you can sit back and say, how can I make these changes? Can I stop spending money in one place and start investing in myself? And there's plenty of free programs that are available to you through, like, say, the community college system in Georgia. I encourage you to go look that up and see if you can't find something that interests you.
Have free programs.
To get you to the next level.
Yep. Options are pretty amazing there. If you work for a company that offers a savings plan like a 401k, enroll in the plan even if you must start with the smallest contribution possible. Meet the advisor that works with your company and let them help you determine how to invest the money every pay period. And as your income increases, increase the amount of your contributions. If you do all these things, you'll be financially better off within a year. and all these actions will become a very financially helpful habit.
Yep.
And habits make all the
And
difference.
Sherry, we're down
100%.
to like 20 seconds, so why don't you just sum it all up for us?
So the more you do these things, the more you practice these things, the more they become something you'll enjoy, and the faster you're going to reach your goals, which is going to motivate you even further. I mean, it's just a loop. And every year that you do this and do, you get better and better at it. Have a great day.
weekend, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Your Money, produced by Lifespan Wealth Management. As financial advisors, the main thing they do is provide retirement planning and advice and manage their clients' investment accounts. If you're looking for a financial advisor, please contact their office at 478-922-8100 to set up your complimentary consultation. You can learn more about them by visiting their website, retirerelax.com. And if you have a question or a topic that you would like them to cover in next week's broadcast, you can email Randy at rfmoney.com. They look forward to connecting with you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Osaic Wealth is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Osaic Wealth.